Hey guys, it's LEGO Boy Z3. This is my tutorial on how to solve the Square-1. So today I have a very highly requested tutorial. A lot of people want to know how to solve the Square-1, and so I'm going to show you how to do that today. And before I get started, I do recommend learning how to solve a normal 3x3 before you learn how to solve this one. Even getting kind of fast at that does help because it shows you like how to learn algorithms and things like that, which I'm not really going to be talking about a whole lot today. I'm just going to be showing you how to do it. And this cube is pretty hard compared to a lot of the other secondary events like 2x2, Megaminx, Pyraminx cube. This one is probably pretty similar in difficulty to the 3x3. And so be prepared to learn quite a bit in this tutorial. And so before we begin, we need to learn the basic Square-1 notation, and this is totally different from the 3x3 notation, so you're going to want to pay attention. And so basically notation is the way that the moves are represented in algorithms. And so the way that it works on a Square-1 is there's sets of numbers, like 2 numbers at a time, separated by slashes. What the slashes mean is you just do a 180 degrees move like that, just all the way across the cube. It doesn't matter what the rest of the sides look like, you just do 180 degrees, just like that. And then the numbers in between are how much you should move the top and bottom layers in between doing these moves. And so if you had an algorithm that said like 1, 2, slash, you would do one move, just one single little thing like that, clockwise on the top, and then the 2 you would do 1, 2 on the bottom, and then do this. And then if you want to go counterclockwise, you would just use a negative number. And so if it was -2, -1, then you would do it like this, -2, -1, and then that. And so there are a couple of different things you need to pay attention to while doing this. First of all, whether or not there's a slash at the beginning. And so if it were to say like slash 3, -3, slash, you'd need to make sure to do the slash first, then 3, -3, and then slash. And second, you need to pay attention to exactly what number it is. And so if it says -5, you need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. You need to make sure it's exactly right, unless you'll mess it up. So that was notation, so I guess we can get started now. And so basically the process of solving this starts with getting a cube shape. And so if you were to have a cube like this, where you see the top and bottom are squares, just like that, that would be the first step. That's the first thing that you want to accomplish while solving. However, you may notice when you start solving the cube, you'll often get shapes like this, weird stuff like this that may not look normal, like what would normally happen, but that's fine. You're just going to want to start off like this, and then we'll get it into a cube as our first step. And so when you begin, there'll be lots of groups of 2 edge pieces. So you see those 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and there's also 2 across from each other here. And so a lot of the time you'll have either 2 across from each other or 2 kind of with a corner piece in the middle of them, and that's fine. But normally what you'll want to aim for is lots of groups right next to each other like this. And before you can get the basic cube shape, what you want to do is group up all the edge pieces all right next to each other just like this. So you see there'll be 8 edge pieces right here, none on the bottom, none anywhere else. They'll all be right here. This is your goal for the first step. And there's a couple of different ways to do it. First of all, if you get really lucky and you just have a bunch of like groups of 2 pieces all next to each other, something like this maybe, group of 2, group of 2, group of 2, or two groups of 2 really. What you'll do is you'll just move the groups of 2 next to each other like this and move it around until you can group up all the groups of 2. That was a very easy example, but you'll normally not get that lucky. But there's another method you can do to get this shape if you have 2 across from each other like this, because it's often hard to get them from across from each other to next to each other. And so you see we have group of 2 next to each other, and a big group up here. And so what we can do first is match up all the groups of 2 that are next to each other, which is pretty simple. We just move it up there. And then once you're left with one group, one big group like this, and the rest of them right here, what you'll do is you'll line it up and just move those 2 right into spot with the rest of them. You see, just like that. And so this part may not always be as easy as you think. Really what you need to do is just mess around with it and learn how to do each individual kind of case, just kind of intuitively. And so like, I know if I have 2 across here, we can't just move this up to match up with this because there'll be an extra piece in the way. But what I do know is that if I do that, we can move it over, bring that back down, and then bring it up next to these ones, in which case we can just bring it up back just like this. And if you were to have some other weird case where you see we have the 2 across from each other here, a group of 2, and other groups of 2 along here, what we'd want to do is isolate the 2 along here and not mess with those, and then just use moves like this to group them up like that. Maybe move it like this so we know that these ones group up nicely, and then finally we can bring it up just like this. But if you do have 2 of them that are kind of next to each other but not quite touching, there's another way that you can do that. And so once you have all the rest of them built up in a big pile like this, what you need to do is replace one of the groups of 2. There's a group of 2 right here. Replace these 2 pieces with those ones, these 2 with these ones, just like that. And so you have kind of weird shape like this. And what that does is it brings these 2 to the bottom. And now you have a big long piece like you had earlier. And now you can use that and replace these 2 and put it back into the pile like that. And then we can do the previous case where we put these 2 back up to here. Now those are the 2 or kind of 3 different ways that you can get a big group like this. And so at the very beginning, they won't line up that nicely every single time. What a lot of the time will happen is you'll have lots of different groups of 2. Some of them are separated, some of them aren't. So you have this one's pretty nice, this one's pretty nice, but then you see you have this big long one, and this one. And so what we can do is we can just combine these 2. Normally when you combine 2 of them that are apart from each other like this, we can get a better case. And so we line it up so we can turn it on this diagonal and maybe on this diagonal so that they will line up when we move them next to each other. And we can do the turn like that. And now we have a single group like this and the long group like this. So we can do the first case that I showed you earlier by moving them around until we can get 2 of them matched up, and then get the last one in using some more moves like that. Now we have a big group of them, and we can just line it up just like that. You can also have a case that looks kind of like this, where you have groups here and here, which you don't really care about, and then you have this group of 2 across from each other, and this group of 2 next to each other. And what you would do in this case is you just move them next to each other, and now we have a normal group of 2, which we can use by just mislining it like that, and adding it to the rest of these that we have stored up there. And now we have a group like that, and so we can move all these next to each other, and then do the same case that we did before, where we replace one of them like that, move it around, replace these 2, and put the 2 in like that. And so obviously there's way too many cases to start with for me to show you all of them today, and so that's pretty much all I'm going to show you for the time being, but hopefully that did help you a little bit. Pretty much just find one of the cases that I showed you, the basic kind of concept of it, and mess with the pieces a little bit until you can get into a case like this. And eventually, as you get more advanced on the Square-1, you'll learn how to do this intuitively every single time. And so now it's time to learn our first algorithm. And so before we begin, what I want to do is just turn the whole cube around like this. And the reason I'm doing this is you see we have a small part right here on the center, and normally you want to grip it like this when you're doing algorithms. You want to have the small part here and the big part in the back. Now this won't always be possible, like when you're doing this algorithm, maybe you can only hold on to a big part, but most of the time you'll be able to grip it like this. And so pretty much whenever you do an algorithm, your preferred way to do it is like this. It doesn't really matter that much, but it just makes it easier when you're speed solving. And so we can begin with it. So the algorithm is slash -2 -4 slash -1 -2 slash -3 -3 slash. And you see now we have a cube. Now what we need to do, and this is pretty simple, is we just need to get all the corner pieces lined up and into place. And so you see right now we have 3 yellow ones and 1 white one, and so we're pretty close but not exactly. And so what we want to do is we want to hold one of the different ones down here on the left side just to make it easier. So in this case this is the yellow one, and we want to line it up so we have a yellow one and a white one in these 2 positions. So I already kind of have it, and so you see we have yellow and white here, and we want to have yellow and white here. And so that way when we turn it like this, they'll line up. And so what we want to do is just move it around. So maybe if it was over here to begin with, you see we have yellow and white, and so move it up. We want to have yellow and white, and so the white piece we move over here, and that way when we turn it around, they'll line up. And so before we turn it around, you may notice it's not a cube when you just line it up like that. So what we want to do instead is just do a single 1 move, just to offset it a little bit like that. And that way, whenever you turn it like this, it'll always remain a cube. And so now we have the 2 of them lined up like that. And you'll notice if we just do a 90-degree turn like that on the bottom, then we'll have lines and lines all the way along here. And so if we just match up the yellow and move it up to the yellow, do a 1 move and bring it up, now we have all yellow and all white. Now if you happen to have something like this where you have kind of a checker pattern on each side, that's fine too. All you need to do is match up a white and yellow over down here with a white and yellow up here. So you see white, yellow, then we do a 1 move, bring them together, line up the lines, just like that. And now we can move it around and bring the lines together, do a 1 move, and now we have all white and all yellow. Finally, one last case, you have 2 similar ones here and here, and you have kind of a checker down here. That's fine. All we need to do is just do 1 move. It doesn't matter which move, just any move. So we'll do a 1 and do a slash. And now it'll line it up to a more familiar case. So we have white and yellow here. So we can match it up with white and yellow here. And do 1. Bring it over like this. And do bottom layer. Line, match it up just like that. Okay, so we have now finished orienting the corner pieces. So now we need to orient the edge pieces. And so we got all white ones on every side, all yellow ones on this side. Now what we need to do is get all white edges on this side and all yellow edges on this side. And so there's kind of a progression to this. So you have the simplest case over here where you only need to do 1 algorithm. There's a little bit harder case where you have to do 1 algorithm and then the first case. And then there's another one where you have to do 1 algorithm, then the next 2 cases. And it's kind of like a tree. It branches out as you go further back. And so this is the simplest case where you just have 2 pieces and 2 pieces. And all you have to do is the basic algorithm 1, 0, slash, -1, -1, slash, and then you can just line it up, and there we go, we have the whole side solved. And then we have the next simplest case, which is where we have 2 of them like this and 2 of them like this. And what we want to do when you have this case is you want to move it so we have like that, so 1 piece in the front like this and 1 piece over to the right on either side. And then what you want to do is do 1 algorithm slash 3, 0, slash -3, -3, slash 0, 3, slash. And there we go. Now we have the first case, and we can just do the algorithm for that one, which I showed you earlier. And now it is solved. Now for the next simplest case, this is where you have across edge pieces like this, which we can line up like that. And then 2 of them like this, which we can line up like that. So 1 on the front and 1 on the left. And then 2 of them just across from each other like this. And so for this one, what we can do is just the algorithm that I just showed you. And so that's slash 3, 0, slash -3, -3, slash 0, 3, slash. And there we go. And now we have this case, which I showed you earlier. And so now we can just line it up by doing this. So we have it on the front and on the right. And we do slash 3, 0, slash -3, -3, slash 0, 3, slash. And then finally the first algorithm once again. And there we go. Okay, now there's 2 more cases which are the most complicated of all of them. And so the first one is where you just have 2 of them, 2 single ones like this. And the other one is where you have 3 of them on one side and 3 of them on the other side. And so if you have it like this, you move this one to the front and this one to the bottom and the left. And what you do is the first algorithm that I showed you. So like that. And that lines it up perfectly for the next case that I just showed you. So we do that algorithm. And then we line it up for that case. We do this algorithm. And then finally we do the final case. Okay, now here's the case with the 3 of them. And so you put the one that is not the other color in the back. And on the bottom you put the one that is not the other color on the right. So just like this. And you do the first algorithm. And then you do a move like that to line it up for the second case. And then you do a move to line it up for this case. And then finally you have this one last case. Now finally there is actually one more case that's totally different from all the rest of them, and it's super simple too. This is where you have all 4 of them on each side. It's pretty rare, so you may not get it a lot. But what you want to do when you get this one is just do the first algorithm that I showed you and line it up and do the first algorithm one more time. And there we go. Okay, so now it's time for corner permutation. And so what you need to do in this step is to get all the corners in the right place relative to each other. And so if this corner was red, then this should also be red. and this one would be something like blue, this one's blue, this is orange, this should be orange. So they should all kind of line up all the corners. And so to do that, it's pretty easy. What you want to do is just look on the first side, and you'll have one of three cases. Either they could all be correct at the very start, or you could have something like this where two of them are correct, but the other ones aren't. Or you could have something like this where none of them are correct, and they're kind of opposite of each other. And so there's going to be one algorithm that we're going to be using a lot during the next two steps. And so first off, if you have none of them on the top that are correct, what you're going to want to do is this algorithm slash 0, -3, slash 0, 3, slash 0, -3, slash 0, 3, slash. And so it's just alternating 3 moves on the bottom. And there we go. Now we have 2 of them in the right spot. And so now once you have 2 of them, you put them over on the left, and then you do that algorithm again, right from the bottom. And there we go. Now they're all lined up. And so now we can flip the cube over and do the same thing on the other side. But we have to be careful. We can't just do the algorithm right here if we have these two, because this layer is already solved on the bottom. We want to be careful not to mess that up. And so what we have to do instead is move it to the back. You see these 2 pieces are in the back now. If you have the 2 of them, then do that. Do the algorithm once. There we go. And then it'll mess up the bottom, but that's okay. We do like a 3 move on top, and move it over to the side now. And then we do the algorithm again, and you see it fixed the bottom up again, and now the top side is correct also. But if you get to the opposite side where you see these ones are correct and these ones are all opposite, that's fine. You just kind of do the same thing. You do the algorithm once, and don't worry, it'll mess those ones up. Move it all the way around so the block is on the left, and do it one more time. And there we go, now they're both solved. And so that's pretty simple. Basically, if you have a cross on the first step, you do the algorithm once until you get to the ones next to each other. And once you have the ones next to each other, or if you started off with that, you do the algorithm once, and now they're all in place. Now you turn the whole cube around. If they're double like this, you do it once and turn the whole thing around and do it again. If they're across like this to start off with, then you do the algorithm from here and then move it over so that's on the left. And then do the algorithm one more time and it will solve it. And so that's it for that step. Now finally we have the second to last step. I'll talk about the last step in a second, which is edge permutation. And so edge permutation is a little bit different. You use the same algorithm, but instead of doing like a 3 move in between doing the algorithm, you just do a single 1 move. And so it's very important when you start doing this step that you have just a single part right here. If you can't have the single part, that's okay. Just make sure you keep the whole cube like this so it's a square and this little part sticking out there. But if you can, you should have it like this. And so ultimately what you want to do on this step is to either get all 4 edge pieces solved or just have 2 of them that are flipped. And we'll fix that later. And so if you just have 3 of them like this is pretty simple. What you want to do is look on the very right here, this piece, and figure out where it needs to go. If it needs to go to the front like this, then we'll keep it like this. But if it needs to go into the back, then we can just turn it like this. So you see the back piece turns along with it. But we want it to go to the front, and so we make it so the front turns along with it. And so what you do, you just do the algorithm that I showed you earlier. Just like that. And you see it put it over there, but it messed everything else up, so don't worry. We'll fix that in a second. So now what we do is we do a single move off to this side. If you had started it like this, then you'd move it back to this side. But for now, we'll do it like this. We do the algorithm one more time. And you see it fixes all 3 of those pieces. Now, if it were the opposite to begin with, you see something like this, where the piece needs to go up to the top. That's fine. What you do, this is not right because this interacts with this piece. What we want to do is move it over to the side first so it'll interact with this piece. So you see these are the 2 pieces moving, and then you do the algorithm once, one from earlier, and then move it over to the side, the other side this time, and do the same algorithm, and you see now the layer is solved. Now sometimes you might get a case like this where you see these 2 pieces are switched and these 2 are switched, and sometimes you'll also get a case where you have these 2 switched and these 2 switched. But if that happens, something like this happens, all you have to do is do the algorithm once, the whole sequence of algorithms, move it off to the side, do it again, just like that. And now we look at the case that we have. So you see this piece needs to move down to here, and so these 2 pieces need to switch, and so we move it like this. And then finally we switch those 2 pieces, move it off to the side a little bit, and there we go. And like I said, the same thing applies to this case where you have these 2 and these 2. You just do the algorithm from any orientation, anything like this. Move it once, Do it again. There we go. Then we move it around, figure out what case we have. So we want to switch these two pieces to begin with. We do the algorithm once, move it off to the side, and do it again. And now the layer is solved. And there's also something you can get called parity, which you may know about from the 4x4. And so this happens when you have something like this, where you have like this piece goes to this piece, and this piece goes to this piece, and this, and it is kind of this weird cycle of pieces. Or maybe you'll have a piece right here that needs to go to here, and here, and here, and here. If something weird like that is happening, that's fine. All you want to do is figure out a piece that you want to move into its correct spot. And so you see this piece may need to move over to this slot back here. That's the easiest way to do it in this case. And move it over. Same thing as we did earlier. And there we go. And now we just have these two pieces that need to be switched. And if you remember correctly, that was our original goal, to just have two pieces that need to be switched. And so also there's another case you can get, like something like this, where you have the pieces just going in a cycle like this. And so in this case, obviously you want to put this piece up to here. And so we do the algorithm once. And then bring it over to the side. And do it again. There we go. And now we just have the two pieces and we're good to go. And so at this point your cube may be solved with the exception of this little layer. It could be totally solved, whatever. But you could also have parity, where you have two pieces like this, or maybe across from each other, that are just switched. It could happen on both sides, whatever. But we can fix that now. And so what you want to do is you want to narrow it down so it looks something like this, where you just have the two pieces next to each other. Now sometimes you won't get quite this lucky, and it may look something like this, where you see you have just two pieces across from each other. And so that's fine. All you want to do is you want to repeat one of those algorithms that you did in the previous step, where you did this, and then move it over once, and do it again. And what that will do is it'll just take these two pieces from being across from each other and put them next to each other. And so now we can work with it. And so now that we have it lined up like this on one or both sides, it's time to learn one of the hardest algorithms you'll ever need to learn. And so this is very long, a very long algorithm. And don't try and look it up, don't do anything. There's no way to avoid it. You have to learn this algorithm. I know it's really a pain when you start to have to memorize this, but you just have to memorize it. And so this algorithm is pretty long. It goes /(-30) /(0 3) /(0-3) /(0-3) /(20) /(0-2) /(-20) /(40) /(0-2) -2 /(0-2) -1 4 /(0-3) and there we go. We can finish it off with a move like that most of the time. And there we go. That's probably the longest algorithm you'll ever need to learn on this cube. And like I said, there's no way to avoid it. You just have to learn the algorithm. There's no way of getting around it. But pretty much once you get to the step where you have two of them across from each other, you do the one algorithm once. You get it so they're next to each other and put them right in that spot. You may have to turn it around after that and do it again. But I've talked about parity enough, and so now we can get on with the very last part of it. And so you may notice something weird once you've gotten all the pieces in the right spot. The middle layer may be off. And so you see all the pieces are solved except this one middle layer piece. And so that's fine. What you need to do is you need to learn one kind of algorithm. I'm not really going to show you the algorithm part of it because you really don't need it. What you just need to do is turn this part, do a complete double move, turn it again, do a complete double move, and turn it again, and you see finish it off with a double move, and it will just flip the whole thing around. It's that simple, and it works on both sides. So you see we can have the piece over here, double move, and double move on top, and it will solve it just like that. And you may also come across a case that looks like this, where you just have the two pieces on either side, or like this, where you just have these pieces on either side, and that's fine too. All you need to do is just do a double move across like that, turn both layers like that, another double move, and then just align the middle layer, and now it is solved. And so if you get either of those cases at the end, no problem. You just do a couple of alternating double moves, and it will fix it up. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. All the steps in order are cube shape, corner orientation, edge orientation, corner permutation, edge permutation, parity, and then you can also count the middle layer thing as an extra step at the end. But that's pretty much it. If you liked this video, you can leave a like down below to show me that you liked it. If you're having any problems, there's a number of things you could do. First of all, you could just use the algorithms that I provided you and just kind of mess around with it on the cube until you figure it out yourself. You could rewatch some of my video. You could look up another Square-1 tutorial. I found Thros very useful when I was first learning. Or if you're really stuck, you could just ask in the comments below and I'd be happy to help you. But anyway, if you have any other suggestions for other videos or tutorials like this in the future that I could make, leave those down in the comments below as well, or any requests for help. Also, stay subscribed to be notified when another video like this comes out, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!